Welcome back to a lecture on, let's take a look. That's microeconomics. I thought I was going to say something about macroeconomics. Here we go. Good. So basically, we took a look at the aggregate supply, short and long run, and now we take a look at shifts in the aggregate supply curves, long and short run. And just like we put together aggregate demand and shifts in aggregate demand. So once we finish 24, we will have our aggregate demand, short run aggregate supply, and long run aggregate supply curve model put together, sort of like the supply and demand we studied for micro in chapter 3, except for that extra curve, the long run aggregate supply curve, which is helpful in explaining things in macroeconomics. So let's get going. Let's finish up this topic number 24 and get along the road to the end of this course. So I have already downloaded it. Whoops, that's not it. Let's take a look. Where did I put my, I want PowerPoints. Oh, I'm getting tired. Here we go, 24. And I want to draw. And so we're looking at shifts in short run and long run. We're going to start with the short run. Again, here is an illustration of shifts. So this shift to the right, this is an increase. So let's talk about that. That's an increase in short run aggregate supply, or a shift to the right. Here's where we have to be careful. So this is an increase, SRAS, increase. And yeah, this can really be confusing if you're not thinking clearly about it, because it appears to be below the original short run aggregate supply curve. And so many students look at this and say, what the hell? This is a decrease. But no, remember that right means increase, left means decrease. So this here, this leftward shift is a decrease, even though it's up. And so let's just call this, oh, I don't know. Can I make that arrow any better? No, I don't think I'm improving it. I think it's making it worse. Oh, well. This is a decrease in short run aggregate supply. Short run aggregate supply decreases, okay? And that means a shift to the left. All right, decrease. Good deal. So here are the causes of the shifts. Basically, if wage rates change, if they increase, it'll shift it to the left. If it decreases, it'll shift it to the right. And I should say, these wage rates, remember we were talking just in the previous one about, changes in real wage rates because of sticky wages or misperceptions of workers. This is not due to price level. I have to write this a little smaller to get it on there. Changes. So these are changes in wage rates that are not due to price level changes. They have maybe a basis in reality or labor unions or something. So prices of non-labor inputs, and basically we're thinking of especially energy. Energy is so important to our standard of living. So in other words, the price of oil. Okay. Of course, if the price of oil goes up, shift to the left. Price of oil goes down, shift to the right. Productivity, of course, this is very important too. So the more productive labor and capital is, the more that can be produced. More can be produced, the better off we are. So if productivity increases, obviously we shift to the right. If it decreases, we shift to the left. Supply shocks can be adverse or beneficial. Adverse we'll talk about, but certainly this coronavirus 19 pandemic is an adverse shock. A beneficial one would be a great fall in oil prices. Hey, and that's happened. These two are happening together. I guess they're working against each other. I think the adverse shock has a much more powerful effect than this beneficial one at this point, and I'm speaking in April of 2020, and we're in the middle of a shelter at home. Don't go out. Don't have things to do with other people because you might get infected with the coronavirus. Output has just dropped like a stone. Adverse supply shock. And here we go. Wage rates go down. This is a shift to the right. So these are shifts, right? We're really talking about shifts. And these will cause rightward shifts, a decrease in wages, a decrease in the price of oil, an improvement in how productive we are, a beneficial supply shock. Okay, so then these are leftward shifts, okay? If wage rates increase, if oil prices go from $20 to $200, I suppose, that would be more like an adverse supply shock. But non-labor things, productivity decreases. These would shift the supply curve to the left. All right. So the following three slides consider the short-run equilibrium that results from putting aggregate demand and short-run aggregate supply together. So here we go. And this basically looks like our supply and demand curve model from chapter 3, and it was constructed so it would be similar. So yeah, there's a short-run aggregate supply and aggregate demand. The only difference is that we have price level here, not opportunity cost, the price level, the price of a given good. And here we have real output of all goods. And so the deal is that if price level is here, well then aggregate demand will be greater than aggregate supply. There'll be a shortage. Prices will be bid up as people try to get the goods that they can't. The shelves are empty, and the price level will be bid up. As the price level is built up, output will increase. People will demand less. So there's a movement along these curves to equilibrium based upon the natural workings of the economy. And if the price level is up here, obviously there's a surplus. Not everything produced can be sold, so the business firms will start cutting prices and, of course, cutting output. And so they're moving this way as prices are cut. Consumers will buy more, and so we're moving down this way. And as long as there's surplus, that will continue. until we move back to equilibrium. So the equilibrium story is pretty much the same here as it was for micro. It's just we're dealing with short-run aggregate supply and aggregate demand instead of supply and demand. Okay, so now here are changes in short-run equilibrium in the economy. And here we have an increase, a shift in aggregate demand, say from a cut in taxes or an increase in government spending. That's going to increase output and price levels. Here we have a beneficial increase, like maybe productivity is increased, shifting the short-run aggregate supply curve out. That too will increase GDP, but it will tend to lower the price level. And finally, and here's sort of what's happening right now due to the pandemic, is that there's been a big drop in supply this way. So one of the forces is pushing us up like this, and of course the price level would tend to go up, and output would tend to go down. As I'll talk about later, there's a countervailing force because basically people are scared. Many people have lost their jobs because they have to stay at home. And really what's probably happening here is that I know I have aggregate demand here. Aggregate demand has fallen too. So really, the fall in GDP could be huge, though the impact on the price level may not be that great due to this pandemic going on right now. We'll have to wait and see. So here we have all four scenarios. So we have to ask whether the factor affects aggregate demand and aggregate supply. If it does aggregate supply, does it increase or decrease aggregate demand? If it increases aggregate demand, of course, you'll get this increase in output of real GDP and increase in price level. If it decreases aggregate demand, you'll get a recession and lower price levels. Let's go with the red one for its supply. So if the variables affect short-run aggregate supply, and they tend to shift it to the right, well, then you'll get an increase in GDP and lower price levels. If the variable, like an adverse supply shock happens, well, then you'll get a decrease in real GDP and an increase in prices. And right here are our two causes of recessions: a shift to the left of aggregate demand or a shift to the left of short-run aggregate supply. Good God help us if both of these happen at the same time, eh? I know that right here, the government spending has increased, so they're trying really to push against this from happening. All right. So here we have all the variables. And I know if you count them, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, there's only 8. I thought we had counted 10. I had counted 2 here. So about future prices and income. So I said that was 3. 4, interest rates. 5, income taxes. 6, I thought we left those the same, and this would be 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, well, there are the 10 shift variables. And on the other side, there are only 1, 2, 3, 4 shift variables. Anyway, they shift around and we get different equilibrium levels of real GDP and the price level. Now we're going to shifts in the long run aggregate supply. So first, be aware, as I had indicated in topic number 23, that the long run aggregate supply is closely associated with the production possibilities frontier. In the production possibilities frontier represents all the output combinations available to an economy that is efficiently and fully utilizing all of its resources at a given level of technology. So the long run aggregate supply curve represents full employment output under the same conditions as the PPF. So these two are identical, they're related to one another. So an increase in resource, so how about economic growth within PPF and LRAS framework? An increase in resources, one, an advance or an improvement in technology can increase production capabilities of the economy, leading to economic growth, and shift outward the PPF and shift to the right the LRAS. So pretty much the same things we said would cause growth in the PPF context will cause growth in the LRAS. So like improved technology, improved resources, shift the long run aggregate supply curve out, okay? I guess a nice thing to talk about here is this aggregate demand. In the long run, notice there's no short run equilibrium. So if aggregate demand stayed here, this would be the new equilibrium. So wherever the aggregate demand curve intersects the long run aggregate supply, that is the long run equilibrium position. It may not be there yet, but it will get there, okay? So from an efficient level of production that shifts LRAS to the right, I think this is pretty much the same thing. Shift it PPF to the right, will shift the LRAS to the right, okay? And here are the determinants of economic growth. I've really went to greater detail here. More natural resources, more labor, more capital. So there you go. Those are what I said. More inputs, right? And then here was the second one, technological advances. Here was the third one I mentioned way back. Oh, I don't know, in chapter 2, free trade, in other words, specialization and exchange. Now these I didn't. So property right structure can have an impact on growth or decay. Economic freedom can have an effect on it, and policies to promote economic growth, and these all can help. So now we've been talking about shifting it to the right, but it can shift to the left and has. You know, if you take the long view back thousands of years, you can see civilizations grow and decay and then fall apart. All right. So hopefully that's not happening now, but maybe. Well, not a regular occurrence over the past 5 centuries, since about 1500, the long run aggregate supply curve can shift to the left. We label these events as adverse shocks to the whole economic system, from which it is sometimes difficult or impossible to recover. Now, sometimes it's not. For example, here's an adverse shock, reduces the capacity of the economy. This is manifested by a leftward shift of the long run aggregate supply curve from LRAS sub 1 to LRAS sub 2, okay? And so we go, so the natural level of unemployment, of output decreases too. Bingo. Yeah, the pie is smaller. Everybody gets a smaller slice. So what causes leftward shifts? Well, natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, tidal waves, etc. Yeah, while difficult, recovery usually takes place in a few years. I think Japan has pretty much recovered from the tsunami, the earthquake and tsunami that occurred in 2008 or thereabouts. War that destroys factories, businesses, farms, houses, towns, transportation infrastructure, and other infrastructure. recovery usually does take place after hostilities cease. Yeah, I guess the example here might be Europe after World War II, but it certainly was pushed to the left quite a bit. Now, here are ones that are hard to recover from: a change in culture or religious beliefs that result in less attention to production. All right. Maybe there's more spiritual, less material desires. Okay. A political change based on envy that punishes productive people who earn a lot and takes stuff away from them and rewards unproductive people. This will usually shift the long run aggregate supply curve to the left. Almost any socialist experiment. Just refer to any of those, and you can see that happening. And being conquered by a people that believes wealth is taken from others, not produced. Oh my goodness, this has happened often in history. Fortunately, not for, gosh, I don't know what to say here. I mean, we can talk about various conquerors. Sometimes the conquerors actually result in greater wealth being produced. But if indeed you think that, and you're the conqueror, that you shouldn't work, you just get others to do it. In other words, in other words, you're just stealing it from people, although people will just stop producing it because they know it'll just be stolen from them. It's sort of like up here, similar, or being conquered by a people that believes productive activity is for slaves, not the elite. These are not prosperous societies. So all of these can happen and have happened in the history of the world. Let's pray that it doesn't happen to us here in the United States, okay? Or any other part of the world. And that does it. We put our model together, and we're going to be taking a look at using it to show a couple ways that this model can demonstrate how recessions happen. We've already sort of seen it here. But that is the next topic. We're going to put this model to work. Okay, good deal. I'm going to stop the recording and